are listening to Real Estate Insiders Radio, featuring successful real estate insiders, influencers, and trendsetters sharing proven tips and strategies to help you navigate the complex world of real estate right now.
Hello, and welcome to today's show. I'm your host, Felecia Phillips Curtis. Today's show is sponsored by Prospertour.com, your go-to partner for real estate investment solutions. Connect at Prospertour.com today, and you too will prosper when you buy or sell your investment property. Prospertour.com, where real estate investments produce cash, clarity, and calm. Call 1-800-5-SOUTH-1. It is your time to prosper. Again, welcome. Today's guest is Tim Dimmick. Tim is my first real estate guest who is actually a realtor. He is with Reliance of Souderton, Pennsylvania. He helps people who have the desire to own their own property, but for some reason or another, do not believe it's possible. Now, Tim has over 20 years, actually, background in not only being a realtor, but home finance, which is a nice pairing for someone who wants to become a homeowner. Tim brings a large amount of knowledge on how to structure a deal to make your home ownership possible for many of you who don't believe it is possible. Welcome to the show today, Tim.
Thanks, Felecia. I appreciate you taking the time to do this interview.
Absolutely. It is my honor to have you on board today. And as you may or may not know, I'm an investor. And, sometimes investors and realtors don't really work together very often. So it's a real opportunity to be able to sit down and chat.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Now, tell me now, who is your perfect prospect? Tim, I did read in your intro that you like to focus on those who just don't think it's possible to become a homeowner.
Mm-hmm. Well, Felecia, my perfect prospect really is that person who, I'm going to say from the mid-20s to the age of, maybe mid-30s, who is either living in rent or still living at home with parents, and really struggles to find themselves believing that they can make home ownership a reality for themselves. I believe a lot of this comes from, obviously, the housing crisis that we went through in the past number of years, to advertisements on TV where people hear, they need 10% down, they need 20% down. And in today's market, if they're living in rent, people find it very difficult because of rent prices, at least in our area, to actually have much left at the end of the month to put away to save, and that creates a big problem because now that the housing market is on the rebound, we're starting to see the prices increase. We're starting to hear all the talk about interest rates increasing, although they really haven't moved to this point, not anything that's going to affect or keep most people from buying. But to outpace that, both those things can certainly be difficult when you're paying, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month in rent. So we really do go after. I got into the real estate business to really help those individuals. That's my target market. There are a lot of government programs available, and we really try to advise people on how they can utilize those programs to their benefit, and really get into homes with little to next to no money down.
Well, it sounds like a cycle. If you're paying that much to rent, it would be difficult to save up. How much can I reasonably expect to have saved before I come to see you?
Well, Felecia, that's totally hard to believe. It will be hard to believe, but, we've literally gotten people into houses with less than a couple $100 out of their pocket.
Wow.
Wow. The government programs that exist for financing, one is USDA. Now, a lot of people say USDA does house loans. Yeah, USDA does do house loans, and they do 100% financing. Now, the properties need to be located in certain areas. It's really designed for rural homes although I would not say that rural really fits the bill today. In my area, I'm about 30 miles north of Philadelphia. We have some very well-populated areas, but do qualify for this loan. There are income limitations to that loan, but in our area, a household of 4 people, you can make a combined income of $93,000 plus dollars. Okay, well, if you make that kind of money, you can qualify really well for the median price house in this area, which probably as a starter home is going to go from 2 to 250, maybe 275. You can make, if you make up to the limit that program allows, you can actually qualify for a house somewhere between 300 and 325.
Wow.
Which is probably more than most first-time buyers want to spend.
Right.
The program is not limited to first-time buyers. The program is limited to someone that currently does not own a home. So whether you went through the housing crisis, maybe lost your home, got yourself, back on your feet again, had credit issues, got reestablished, and now you just have a lack of funds, that program exists. And again, 100% financing, and the seller is able to contribute up to 6% of the sale price towards your closing costs. Now, in most cases, closing costs don't range quite that high, depending on taxes and depending on where you are, whether you have transfer taxes. Your closing costs, I'm going to say, are going to range from somewhere between 4 to 6%, but 6 is on the high side. The seller can pay all of that. Now, are they willing to is the question. Not necessarily, but they may pay 3%, so you might have to come up with the other 3%, but you're financing 100% of the value of the property. Another great trick to that program is you can finance 100% of the appraised value, not the sale price. So if you purchased a home for $200,000 and it appraised for $210,000, you literally could build all your closing costs right into the loan because you could finance $210,000, not $200,000.
Nice.
Another program that we use is the FHA loan, which FHA has been around forever. Requires 3.5% down or investment from the borrower. But there are also PHFA second mortgages that allow you to finance up to 4% or $6,000, which makes up that 3.5% that you need down. And again, with FHA, seller again can pay up to 6% of that sale price towards the buyer's closing costs.
Wow. Now, I was familiar with the FHA, but and I've heard of USDA, but did not know about the caveat that you mentioned where you can actually go up to the appraised value of the property. That is amazing.
It is amazing. And one of the things we really work hard at, and my finance background is, when I was in the finance business, doing home mortgages, I realized that there were just very few people taking advantage of this program. And yet it was a great program for our area. And, it's so accessible that why realtors don't use it, I'm really not sure. But it's definitely there. It's available. It's never gone away. So I question, or people question me sometimes about the program and say, the fact that buyers are not making an investment into their home, isn't that riskier? Yeah, it is riskier to a point, but is it the cause of the housing collapse? You hear that a lot of times. Well, people need to make an investment. They need to have some skin in the game. And when they don't, they just walk away. Well, that may be true, but that's saying that every renter that investors rent a property to are not good people and don't pay their bills, which we know is not to be true, right? Because otherwise people wouldn't invest in real estate.
Exactly.
So, again, it comes back to most of the time people not having the funds to get into that house. And a prime example is I had a lady contact me the other day and says, we're really not in a position to buy a home. She said, but I'd really like to know what it takes to qualify. I said, well, let me ask you, if you're going to go rent a property today, most landlords are going to expect that client pay the first month, the last month of rent, along with a security deposit. Well, in that situation, you're going to need probably $2,500 to $4,000 to get into that property to rent. And if you've got that kind of money, most of the time you can get into a property. Now, again, you're going to fight with, will the seller pay all your closing costs? No, in today's market, not necessarily, but maybe. And one of the things I work hard at with the background of finance is structuring the deal properly. And instead of, if you find a property that's been on the market and you say, well, maybe it's not quite worth that, I don't want to offer them because the house was, on the market for the last 3 months, so it's probably not worth what they're asking, or you feel it's too high. If there are comparable properties out there for sale or have sold and can validate that price, I always tell those buyers, let's not go in and beat the seller up on the price. Instead, let's ask them to pay some of your closing costs or all your closing costs. And I can't tell you how many deals I've seen come across my desk where they were not structured that way, and the people needed to come up with more money than they wanted to because of that. So having the background in finance really did help me start my real estate career and help focus on these people that really have limited funds but have good credit, have good debt ratios, and can qualify for a loan, just do not or are not aware that these programs exist.
Right. Now, folks, if you're listening and you have not purchased your first home, please continue. Put your ear to the speakers. We've got Tim Dimmick with us this morning, who is with Reliance of Souderton, Pennsylvania. I'm going to refer to Tim as a power real estate agent with a background with not only being a realtor, but a finance guru as well, and that is a power connection in my book. Now, you mentioned something, Tim, about good credit. What is good credit?
Well, obviously, when the housing crisis came about, lenders tightened up their lending parameters and guidelines on all kinds of programs. And there for a while, they were really looking for, 660 scores. Conventional loan today, if you go get your typical conventional mortgage, you're putting 5% down. If you don't have a 680 score, you're probably going to get hit in a rate or adjustments to your rate. With the government loans, FHA, you can go all the way down to 620. FHA is a little bit more lenient on credit score. USDA really wants a credit score of 640 or higher. And then, of course, there still are other factors that go into, the approval decision, which may be length of time at your job, the number of trade lines. Sometimes people with a 640 credit score or 620 credit score have good credit. They just don't have enough of it, or it hasn't been established long enough to give them a higher score. So sometimes it's nothing more than time being on their side. They don't have enough accounts, or that those accounts have not been open long enough. Once you get over a year and 2-year credit history and experience, and I tell people, go open a credit card. You may be against credit cards, but if you have the ability to open one, use it, but pay it off every month. That payment history is what's going to build that credit score. Many times, adjusting your credit score may be as simple as paying down some of your debt. You might have sufficient credit. You may have sufficient trade lines, but those credit cards may have too high of a limit, or your balance may be too high against the limit. What most people don't realize is that about every 10 to 15% of your balance against the limit will affect your score. I try and educate people that you want to keep those balances at or below 20% for the ultimate effect on your score.
That's so true.
You get it up to 50%, 60%, and 70%, you're basically telling a lender or a creditor that, yes, you have credit. While you may make your payments on time, you're still in debt. Having a credit line of $10,000 and keeping it below $1,000 or $2,000 is telling that lender or creditor that you can manage your debt well. When you take that limit, that balance up to $5,000 and $7,000 and you're paying minimum payments, you're basically saying that you can't afford to pay more than the minimum payments, right? And you really shouldn't be in that debt. Now, if you want to go charge $4,000 on your credit card this month and have the ability to pay it off, guess what? That's going to show up as well, on that credit. It's going to tell the lender what your high credit balance has been. Have you paid it down? They're going to know by the balance, So the history is super important. Balances are super important. And we really try to educate people on what they need to do, because that's really the most important thing. A lot of times you get past the job history, you got the job history under your belt, and it's just credit score. You can turn credit around in a shorter period of time, provided you have the right direction and the right information to do so.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have someone in my family. My youngest daughter is antsy right now to buy. She would be a first-time home buyer, one of your potential clients. She walks in the door in your office, sits down, explains her scenario. How do you help her? How would you, when you're in front of your perfect prospect, which may be listening right now, how do you walk them through this process, Tim?
Well, the first step, Felecia, everybody wants to own a home. There's no doubt about that. I think, I shouldn't say that because everybody doesn't want to own a home, but if that prospect walked through my door, the first things first is, in today's market, you've got to be pre-qualified or pre-approved. We're finding in our area that if houses are priced right, certainly for that first-time home buyer market, which might be a townhouse, a row home, it may be a single home. If those properties typically are going to fall from $150,000 to $300,000, if they're priced right, they're gone in a week. There's just such a demand right now in our area anyway for that market. And that market has not come out of the woodwork yet. I believe there's a lot of pent-up demand. So the first thing is they've got to be pre-approved. There is no substitute for that. If you walked in and I'm your realtor and I just walk you out the door and start showing you properties and don't know what you're approved or qualified for, number one, I'm probably wasting my time, but more importantly, I'm wasting your time. So it's really important to get a team of people, which we have surround us, a team of great qualified mortgage people that know the industry, know the product lines that we like to work with so that we can structure a deal and get them pre-approved. How much money do they have to work with? Whether it be little to none, that doesn't scare me, as you know, because we've got the programs. Knowing what they qualify for a mortgage payment is more important. So finding out that their credit is strong enough, yes, they can afford this much money based on the income in which they make and their current debt load. Once they have that in place, and once we know what those numbers are, the shopping phase becomes easy and it becomes fun, because now we know what they qualify for. I'm not going to be searching for properties that are on your wish list that you can't afford and really do nothing for you other than disappoint you.
Right. That makes perfect sense. So I come in, I get pre-approved, and then I'm basically, with my pre-approval, I'm giving you some a groundwork from which to work and to be able to assist me. You'll then be able to target everything that you do from that information, really.
Really, absolutely. Other than where do you want to live, But again, now we step on to the next phase, which is, what are your criteria? Do you have school districts that you want to be in? I met with a lady yesterday who has a special needs child, and she's checked out the schools and knows the schools that offer the best programs. So she wants to look in a particular school district. I've got another client that same scenario. She's got her daughter who's in an elementary school. She doesn't want to move her daughter from that elementary school. So now we can choose the area. We know the style of home you want. We know the amenities that you're looking for. Yes, some may be a little far-fetched, but let's get what we need, what would have to be absolutes for you. We get that nailed down. We get the area nailed down. We know the price range you're going to be in based on the payment you qualify for. And if it's not out there today, we put you on an automatic email list that is tied to the MLS search. where we put your criteria in, and you'll be automatically sent all new listings that show up that fit your criteria.
Right. Well, Tim, I remember I was in my 20s when I bought my first home, when I got the itch and was just ready to buy. And I was renting at that time the bottom of a duplex at 4512 South L Street. And I actually wanted to buy that duplex. The owner was an absentee owner, and I had pretty much made that place my own, quite frankly. And
right.
I wanted to buy it and either make it into a one huge home or rent out the top, which was already rented, which would be perfect as well. And I remember her saying something to me that basically gave me the impression that I could not buy it. And I'm so glad I didn't quit. And I put in an offer for a house, which I bought for actually $10,000 more with no problem using FHA. And that duplex was my ideal place because I didn't want to move, change my children's school and so forth.
Sure.
But there are probably a lot of people like myself at that time who think that they can't do it. And sometimes people around you will give you the impression that because you've been renting that you're just a renter. What do you say about that?
Well, I will tell you that you hit the nail right on the head, and it's one of the reasons I was excited to do the interview because, again, so many people, you got to be careful who you get your information from.
Amen.
It's in anything, not just real estate, but in anything, and many of us, we do look to our friends for advice, but if you're going to look to your friends for advice, find one, when it comes to real estate, find one that's got experience in real estate, find one that owns a home, find one that's owned multiple homes, find one that's an investor, ask your questions to the right people. Don't ask that same question to somebody that's never owned a home because they're not going to give you the same answer, I promise you.
Right.
So, deal with somebody that has experience. And that's the best advice I can give you because, things do change and they change dramatically all the time, and what's true today may not be true a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. What happened in the housing crisis, if you would go by lending guidelines today and compare them to back then, they're much different. They've gotten stricter, but on some programs, not all programs. The USDA program and FHA has been here for a long, long, long time, and they've never gone away. Did they get a little tighter on the qualifications? Yes, they did after the housing crisis, but they're still here. You can still finance 100%. The program still exists. Can you do it everywhere? No. What I want to make clear is that USDA program, while it's available, it is limited to certain areas, again, where it's not really densely populated. So you want to check your real estate agents to make sure that you are looking for a property in the right area. But guys, don't take everybody's advice. Don't quit because somebody tells you one thing. Make sure that information is in fact true. And there's a lot of information available on the internet, but again, just because it's on the internet, that doesn't make it true either. So you got to consider the source. Look to sources like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, USDA, FHA. There is a lot of information that is available from government sites, and you want to find somebody that's experienced in those type of loans and that type of financing that can certainly give you the right answers.
Right. Folks, we're talking to a real estate insider today with over 20 years of experience in real estate as a real estate agent and also with a background in financing, which is a power pair to have in your back pocket when you're trying to purchase your first property. That saves you a lot of time and anguish and just simplifies things and also moves you forward faster, in my opinion. Tim Dimmick here with us today. Tim, can you tell me 2 or 3 problems, real or perceived, that you tend to find yourself solving for your clients?
Well, let's do, I would say one of the main things is again, people perceived problem would be that they can't afford to buy a home because the mortgage payments are too high. And again, I can only speak for my area, Felicia, but, typically I can put someone that would go rent a home, typical rent in our area for a house. Now, not an apartment, but a house, is going to range anywhere on norm from $1,000 to $1,500 a month. That's the norm.
Okay.
And people that can afford that can also afford to buy a home. Now, are they going to be able to afford a $300,000 home for that money? No, but they can certainly afford a $200,000 home for that. I worked up some numbers for a client the other day who was spending $1,400 a month for rent and didn't have a lot of funds. But I showed them a house that was a twin, beautiful home, new carpets. I mean, really nice home for $192,000, and their payment was $40 less than what their rent was.
Wow.
So a big perception, again, misconception for a lot of people renting, say in their mind, if I'm paying $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month in rent, what must it cost to own a property? And you'd be surprised, because the rates are so low today, housing prices really are not that inflated at all, in my opinion. You do have a lot of buying power. You can buy a $200,000 house in most cases for around $1,400. Again,
wow.
Depending on what taxes are and those kind of things. So to think that you can't afford it is really the number one misconception that I run into. And again, The second one is people, again, feel that they don't have enough money to buy. And that's normal because when you don't have $10,000 sitting in the bank or $20,000, which you think you need, you certainly think that there's no possible way that I can, in fact, buy a home. And I'm here to tell you that, you got $5,000 to $10,000 to work with, you should be able to find a property. Is it going to be your dream property? Maybe not. Is it going to be a decent property? Yeah, it should be. They're there. The magical question is, can you find a seller that's willing to pay some of those closing costs to close that gap of the actual funds you would need should they not pay any? So, and that's my job. I look at that, that's part of my job in structuring the deal properly and asking that seller to pay some of those closing costs so that we can get it into the realm of possibility for what you have, both a budget as well as money to work with.
Right.
The third real problem, and this is a real problem, I believe, and that is, again, coming back to where we started, Felicia, in that when you're in that situation where you have limited funds, to think that you can't save money fast enough, so you have limited money, you're paying rent of $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month, and it's very difficult for those people to save any kind of money, even if you're only saving $200, $300 a month, which most people are not.
Right.
Over the course of the year, you're saying, wow, I'm saving a whole $2,000 or $3,000 a year. I am not going to be able to outpace the price increases in housing or outpace the effect that rising interest rates will have on my payment. And you feel like it's a losing battle. And It's really one of the reasons that I say, you know what? Right now, we've got the best of both worlds. We've got housing prices that are decent. I'm not going to say they don't seem expensive to some people. They will. But the fact that rates are low, most people that are spending that kind of money on rent can get into a place today and get into it for the same kind of money. And the reality is, if you wait 2 or 3 years, that same house price may be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more, and interest rates might be 1% higher. And you will not be any better off necessarily by waiting and saving more money than if you did it today.
Well, that third problem where the average person or couple cannot save fast enough, that the one that you specified as a real problem, I'm going to, I don't know what you think about this, but if we were to brainstorm here together, I'm thinking we could make that a perceived one perhaps as well by thinking of things like, using our tax return. So sometimes it's hard to save on a regular basis, but I was with a friend yesterday who just received her tax return, and you know what she said? She said something about buying a car. Well,
Right.
you know, how about, I mean, if home ownership is a real goal of immediate goal, to when you get a lump sum from a source like your taxes, perhaps consider that money as down payment funds.
Absolutely. And here's one other thing while you're on that, Felecia, while you're on that subject of tax returns, and one of the things I try to get first-time buyers to understand is when you look at, if I was able to put someone in a home for the same money that they're spending in rent, or even $100 or $200 more, the fact that you are now going to gain a huge, huge write-off on your tax returns. For an example, you're going to write off your real estate taxes, which if they're $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000, depending on where you live, $3,000 and $4,000 is about the norm for a $200,000 house in our area, $2.25, whatever. But that $3,000 or $4,000 is now going to become a write-off. If out of your mortgage payment, you're paying, let's say, $500, $600 a month in interest, that's another $6,000 to $7,000 a year that you're going to have in write-off. So just from owning that property, you're probably going to gain $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 in write-offs that you currently do not have.
Right.
Let alone you have the opportunity for appreciation in value, and every month that you make that mortgage payment, even if it's only $100 or $200 or $300 a month, is going to principal. It's going to principal. It's building equity in that property. So when you look at those things to offset that increase of $100 or $200 a month that you may jump into by buying a property, the net effect of your wealth is going to go the other way. It's going to increase because, again, you're getting those write-offs. And one other point I would make in helping people, because of those write-offs, if you're getting $10,000 in additional write-offs by owning a home, but it's costing you $200 extra a month, if you're in the 20% tax bracket, you're going to save $2,000 in federal taxes by having $10,000 write-offs. Now, you might say, instead of waiting till the end of the year to get that money back, walk into your payroll department and ask them how many more exemptions you need to claim in order to get that $2,000 back in your paycheck throughout the year. So let's say you need $40 more a month, $40 more a week in your paycheck. How many more exemptions do you need to claim to get that $40 back in your paycheck instead of waiting till the end of the year? That will offset your increase in your payment from rent to buy, if in fact you have one.
Right.
Most
That's
people
good
don't
information.
that.
That's good information. And on top of that, that equity that you mentioned is really it's really valuable as you grow older and you're concerned about retirement and that sort of thing. Just building up that equity and having something to pass down and you're building an asset that's just invaluable for the future. Whereas if you're renting, you're building up that asset for the person whom you're renting from.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I had a guy the other week said, if I looked at renting, I bought my house back before the market crashed. And, right now, he says, I'm getting back to where I was before the market crashed. And he said, but in the meantime, I spent all that money. He says, so really, was real estate really a good investment for me? He said, or would I have been better off renting? I said, well, let me ask you something. How much would you have spent in rent over that period of time?
Good question.
You wouldn't have any of that back. So you really do. Real estate is a great field. It's a great opportunity to build wealth. There have been more people make more money in real estate, I think, than any other field. But again, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but getting people on the right track to own that first home is what excites me most. I love what I do. I love to help them make that dream become a reality.
Right. That's wonderful. Felecia Phillips Curtis here with Tim Dimmick, a realtor with over 20 years of experience, and with that, he's also got a loan background, a lending background, where he has knowledge and expertise on not only how to acquire the property, but how to get finance for the property in order to save you time and energy and make the process a lot more organic and easy. Now, what would you say is your magic or expert ability? What's your magic, Tim?
Felecia, I don't know if there is any magic, but I think the magic really does reside in the fact of knowing the numbers game. And I really don't say that easily, nonchalantly. There are a lot of realtors that really don't know the numbers game, and I'm not putting any of them down. It really just is the experience. Knowing how to structure a deal to make it work so that people are not frustrated, that they don't run out of money halfway through the process. Calculating, and again, the mortgage background has helped me immensely because, when I'm working out what someone's going to net from the sale of their property, and maybe buy the next house, calculating that payoff on their mortgage. Many people will use, their current mortgage balance. Well, reality is we make a mortgage payment in arrears, right? We borrow the money for 30 days until we make that first payment, which means when we go to pay that mortgage off, we're going to owe that month's interest that we didn't pay because we're not making that payment on the first of the month. Well, in some cases, that's $1,000. And while $1,000 may not sound like a lot, when you are close on having money to do the next deal, that $1,000 might mean all the difference in the world. You only have so much time to make that $1,000 up. So, again, from home inspections to, private water and sewer, it's just the 20 years, plus years of experience in the home finance industry and the real estate business. No, you almost see it all eventually, but although I will say that I had one the other day that I never seen before, but it was a situation where there was a private septic system, and the private septic system was on a lot that was not owned or being offered for sale. It was on the neighbor's property, and there was an easement for it. I'm like, wow, now that's a new one, but again, there's no substitution for experience. I'm not going to say that someone with less experience is less capable, but the finance end, I know it really well, and I've surrounded myself with finance people that know these products that we use to help those first-time buyers get into their properties. They know it really well. They know it just as well as I've ever known it. And it really does help in structuring the deal. I can call my guys, give them the numbers. I know they've worked a few different scenarios, whether it be getting trying to help people get the payment in line with what they want it to be. Sometimes out of necessity, we might have to back into how much cash it's going to take to get your payment where you want it to be or where they're going to qualify for. They may have a scenario where they're trying to buy a house that's $10,000 more than they can really qualify for based on payment. So we got to look at every scenario we can to make that payment be what they want it to be and what they qualify for and what it's going to take to get them there. And if that means, guess what? You might have to wait 6 more months and save the daylights out of what you can save to get there, then at least you know that on the front door, and you're not trying to buy something that you can't get otherwise. But it's a lot of fun. And, I think part of the magic is I love what I do. It's fun to help people.
That is incredible. Now, you help them by making them aware of the programs that a lot of people aren't aware of, and a lot of realtors, for whatever reason, don't mention and may not be aware of as well. So you know about those programs to buy the homes, your first homes, with little or no money down. You also help in understanding how to structure an offer. Sounds like you can structure offers in unique ways because of your finance background. You already know how to work the numbers, which typically the first-time home buyer needs to go to the bank in order to get that information and then come back to the realtor. But you're a one-stop shop. They can do both with you in your office, it appears. And you also can show them how to own that home for the same kind of money and payment that they use right now when they're renting. Am I right?
That's right. That's exactly what I'm after. I got into the real estate business totally focused on that market. And again, I believe there's a lot of pent-up demand because people don't believe they can own. And that first-time market is starting to come to life. There are more first-time buyers out on the market and looking for homes. And it will continue to propel the other market because there's a lot of people that, obviously want to sell their homes and move up to the next property as well. But if the first-time buyers aren't there to buy that level of house, then they can't move up either. But we're not seeing that anymore. Those days are gone for hopefully a long time. Again, the market is very strong in our area. Houses that are priced properly disappear within a week. It's insane trying to find people in our market right now. Our biggest challenge is finding the houses right now. So it's a good problem to have.
That is a good problem to have. So
it is, and it's good to see.
Tell me, Tim. Now, why wouldn't someone buy from you? What would you think is the main reason a person that you can help decides not to come to you for your services?
Felecia, I really don't know. I think most people, once they have the understanding of what we do, I don't lose a lot of clients, walk away and go somewhere else. Not in that particular market for sure. I think a lot of it has to do with it sounds too good to be true.
Right.
Breaking into the real estate business, my whole thing was, no money down homes, and although that sounds like a gimmick, I really wanted to create that brand and that image because it exists, and people aren't aware of it. And so it is an attention getter. Is it anything that the next realtor can't do? No, it's not. It's not anything. I don't do anything that the next realtor can't do. Question is, do they have the knowledge to do it, and are they aware of the programs to make it possible? And again, it's that combination of the finance background that gave me that knowledge. Someone walking into the real estate business is not going to have that finance background, and so again, it comes back to knowledge is power. When you have it, you've got to utilize it. And if you don't have it, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. That's one of my favorite things is, you be careful because you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And, that's when the light bulbs go off, and it just takes time and it takes experience and it really takes the knowledge and it takes the research for someone to know what exists and how to make something possible, and if you don't take the time, investigate what's out there, you're not going to know.
And, that's the thing I love about doing this show. When you don't have the knowledge, it's good to have an insider who does have the knowledge that to go to, and that's where you come in. Tim Dimmick today, folks. Now, tell me, I ask this question before I close every interview. Do you have a top free resource that you use on a regular basis? I like to give people freebies, knowledge about freebies that are out there. Do you have an app or do you go somewhere online? Any type of resource that you use regularly in your day-to-day business operations that you'd like to share with us?
Honestly, Felecia, I do not. I don't really have. I do not. I wish I did probably now that you say that.
I mean,
and maybe that's something I need to do because, it is a great resource. I will tell you that I get more action from my Facebook page than I do anything. And I am constantly, my wife says, you're the only guy I know whose phone goes dead in the middle of the day. And I said, well, I'm on it all the time because people are always asking me questions, and I am totally open to that. I'm totally open to helping somebody. Somebody wants to give me a call. They can give me a call, ask me any question they want to about, USDA loans or, how would you structure this? How would you do that? And people come right to me from Facebook and message me. And it sort of amazes me, but it does prove that there is a big demand out there for this market. And they're really uneducated. But we have fun doing it. That's all I can tell you is we do have fun. I love what I do. I love showing houses. My wife says, well, you're crazy. I said, you know what? I love every house is a new adventure, But yes. And every client's a new adventure. But, there's something about helping people buy their first house that I just love.
Yes. Well, thank you for the opportunity to do this coffee shop interview with you, Tim Dimmick. For this peek into your world, it's been fun. Thanks very much.
Felecia, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
And thank you, prospertour.com. Now you know where to go when you want to prosper in real estate. 800-5, the word South 1, or text 678-499-2575. I'm your host, Felecia Phillips Curtis, the voice of insider information in the exciting world of real estate.
This has been another episode of Real Estate Insiders Radio. To hear all episodes featuring our hand-picked real estate insiders, visit us online at realestateinsidersradio.com.